So this weekend, it was Force Friday 2. Woohoo! Like no people like, what is Force Friday? This is when the toys came out from Star Wars, okay? It's so cool. So I look forward to this weekend. In fact, here it was, Thursday night. 11 o'clock at night, I'm in my car, I'm driving to Toys R Us to stand in line to be there for the midnight opening of all the stores. So many stores were participating. You had Target opening up, Meijer, which was already open. I mean, all these people are like, toys are coming out, 12:01 a.m., Force Friday 2, Star Wars, The Last Jedi toys hit the shelves. And I wanted to be first in line so that I could get myself a plush Porg little toy to be able to say I got a Porg. Okay, I'm just so pumped about this, right? So the time had come. It was Thursday, 11 o'clock. I'm pulling into Toys R Us. There's like 6 people in line. I'm thinking, yes, I'm number 7. That's awesome. I should definitely be able to get what I want when I get there. So I'm standing in line, and there I stand. And as I'm standing there, the line starts growing. There's like 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, and it's just it's going off around the building. I have no idea how many people were in line because it went around the building. So I'm just like, yes, here we go. Then the manager comes out. And Toys R Us had this big advertised special. We will give you, the first so many people, as long as supplies last, a free t-shirt and a free poster. That's why I'm at Toys R Us versus anywhere else. Normally I'd go to Target because I'm a Target shopper. But Toys R Us, fine, I'll go to Toys R Us because I wanted me a t-shirt. Manager comes out. Yeah, we don't have any t-shirts. Okay, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and take everyone's name and phone number, and we'll call you when the t-shirts come in. Okay, I came here for the t-shirts, but okay, that's fine, cool. And they're like, here's the posters, and I open up the poster, and it's the big old Star or Toys R Us logo with a little ad at. And I'm like, really? It's a Toys R Us logo? This is okay, that's fine. I'm really here for the Porg toys, man. I'm really here and to get myself a Luke Skywalker. Those are my 2 things, Luke Skywalker and Porg. That was my 2 things. So the doors finally hit. It's midnight. I'm tired. Okay, because usually when it hits 10:30, I turn into a pumpkin. That's my average motif. Okay, I'm getting old. And so, but it's midnight, and I'm pulling through. Got my Coca-Cola. I'm ready. The door's open. We go walking in. I had the temptation to run because the people in front of me were like bigger. I know I'm faster. 7th doesn't have to stay 7th. I've seen the Indy 500 on TV. I know what's possible, but I decided I don't want to instigate a riot. So I'm walking, and I noticed that the first person's walking past. He already has his arms stacked with boxes, and I went, holy cow, somebody shopped hard. Another person walks back, their hands are stacked with boxes. Fortunately, they're the boxes of stuff I don't want. There's the stuff that's not even the stuff I'm interested in. That's fine. No one's buying the little figurine, so that's cool. And no one's buying Porgs. That's cool. It's going to be all me. I get there. I get to the line. And you know what I see there on the shelves of Toys R Us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I felt so stupid. I'm sitting there looking at those shelves, and there's nothing there. And no one's bought anything yet. They had like 1 toy here, 1 toy there, 1 toy over here, and that was it. And we're looking at it going, where's the toys? Is it somewhere else? And the manager says, oh, we didn't get any in. What do you mean he didn't get any in? He's like, well, we got like 1 box. We're supposed to get 10, but the other 9 got put on a different truck. It spent the night in Kentucky. It's going to go to Ohio first. It'll hit here sometime next week. Here at midnight for no toys, and I'm tired. So then everyone's like, there's no toys. Quick, everybody, to Walmart. And everybody started heading out the store. They're going to Walmart. I decided I won't go to Walmart because that's where everybody else is going. I'm going to go to Meijer. It's next door. That'll be cool. So I go into Meijer, and I'm walking through the Meijer store. I'm like walking through. No one's around me. I'm like, I can walk faster now. So I'm charging it to the back. I get to the back to the toy department, and guess what I see? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I felt so stupid. And all it had was a sign that said coming soon. I called my wife and I said, they've got nothing. And she's like, what? What? Who is this? What's going on? And I'm like, nobody has any toys. She goes, let me go to Meijer.com just a minute. Oh yeah, according to the website, they're putting them out on the shelves at 6 a.m. I'm like, what? No, this is bad. Okay, and so then it just come to find out Walmart. Everybody starts showing up from Walmart. They're mad. Why? Because Walmart didn't have any toys either. Because Walmart was instructed by their manager, don't put anything out until morning. And so we're like, where are the toys? So I dropped my kids off at school, and I decided this will be it. I will get the toy, because it's 9 a.m. Surely Meijer has it available. We get there. My wife's with me. We're charging through the store. We get to the toy aisle. Empty. And I'm like, where are the toys? I look, and there it is, a little pallet filled with boxes, unopened. And there's a lady stocking the shelves. Oh, no. Oh, no. I need to take that back. She was stocking nothing. She was straightening shelves with the speed of a turtle who's in his 200th anniversary. Because she's going, neat. And I'm like, my eyes twitching. I'm like, hi there, how's it going? She goes, oh, it's going fine. Like, so I see you got some new Star Wars toys. When are they? Do you think maybe they might be on the shelves? And she said, oh, anytime now. 45 minutes I waited. I went back after 45 minutes. She was still there. I'm like, ugh. Have you ever had one of those days where everything goes wrong? Have you ever had one of those frustrating days where nothing seems to go right? Oh yes, I went to Walmart afterwards. They had nothing still because the lady said, well yeah, we had it in the back. We were told not to put it out. Now they're so far buried, we can't get to them. Have you ever had days like that? Oh, that time I was frustrated. So then I saw there was one box on the shelf that hadn't been unpackaged yet. I unpackaged it. And I got myself a Chewbacca. Yes! Have you ever had days like that where everything goes wrong? Days where it just seemed, and maybe we try to comfort ourselves with that little colloquialism, it doesn't rain, Maybe you try to comfort yourself with that. You know, it just seems that this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and it just keeps going. When we're part of God's army, that is definitely what tends to happen from time to time, is that things go wrong, and they keeps going. And that's what Jesus is going to be dealing with here as we conclude chapter 9. As we go verse by verse through the whole book of Matthew, these last 21 verses, usually we cover 3 or 4 at a time. That's why we've been in this series for like months, and we're only in chapter 9. But we're going to look at 20 verses all at once. It's going to seem like a whole lot of information and stuff thrown at you at once for a great payoff, and it's totally worth it. But I want you to see, like my situation with those crazy Star Wars toys, that Jesus has days where things just pile up, and it keeps coming at him, and he just wants to quit, and he just wants to give up, and you can sense it in his voice, you can sense it in his behavior, you can see it just dripping from the text. Jesus being exhausted, and it's just so much is going on, and that Jesus just wants to get away, or wants everything to just slow down, and it doesn't. It gets worse and worse and worse. Where we've been at so far up to this point, where Jesus is currently at, he's at a party. Okay, he had just called Matthew to follow him and be one of his disciples. Matthew's dropped his IRS gig, and he left being a tax collector, and he followed Jesus. And within the first hour of being a follower of Jesus, he throws a party. He gets all his sinner friends, all the gals in stiletto heels, everybody who roots for Ohio, brings everybody together, all the sinners, all the crazy people, brings them all together, and he throws a party so that they can all meet Jesus. That's what Matthew tries to do. And all Jesus wants to do is to talk with with them, minister to them, and do a little bit of bouncing to Jay-Z. That's just kind of what's going on. And they're having a great party. The camels out front, they're jacked, they're bouncing, everything's going. Okay, the donkeys are kind of swaying a little bit, and everything's just going groovy. Then the Pharisees showed up. They complained that Jesus was eating with sinners. Then after that, while they were still talking, John the Baptist's disciples showed up, complaining that they weren't fasting. So Jesus gets in trouble for eating. He gets in trouble for not eating. And then while he's still talking to John the Baptist's disciples, more things start piling up on him. Check this crazy day out for Jesus. Okay, so he ends up finding this risky ruler. Check this out. Here's what happens. So while Jesus was saying this, talking about fasting with John the Baptist's disciples, so while Jesus was talking to them, so at that exact complete moment, a synagogue leader, a pastor if you will, came, knelt before him, and says, "My daughter has just died." Now pause here. If yelling Pharisees didn't kill a party, and if yelling John the Baptist's disciples doesn't kill a party, a person kicking in the door yelling, "My daughter's dead," kills the party. Okay, this brings the whole party to a standstill now. Okay, so my daughter has just died, but come. In other words, leave this party. Hear that. Come, leave the party and put your hand on her and she will live. So Jesus, I imagine, just maybe with a sigh, just, okay. So Jesus gets up and went with him, and so did his disciples. So now are gathered, and they're all going together to follow this man. Now, I don't know if you, just to kind of keep this in mind, okay, pray for your pastors. If you're online and you're at a different church, pray for your pastors, pray for your deacons, pray for your elders, pray for your group leaders, your Sunday school teachers. Pray for all leaders in the church, because this is what ministry is like. Where you give an hour here, somebody calls and wants an hour there, then this person calls and wants you to come over here, then that person wants you to go over there, and constantly there is that push and pull, and constantly there is that tug. Some days of ministries are like that. So pray for your leaders. It's not a complaint. It's not a criticism. It's just a pointing of the reality that most people don't think about. That being in ministry is completely like this. There are some days where it's slow, and there are some days where there's 16 people in the hospital, 2 people are dying, 2 people want premarital counseling, 2 people are in jail, someone wants to commit suicide, and it's just all these things that start piling up to where you have an entire week where it's like, do I even have a family? I haven't seen them in 5 days because somebody wants a chunk of somebody. And so there are days that are like that. So by all means, pray for people, pray for servant leaders, church leaders across this country, because they have a big job. They have a really big job. And so here's Jesus in a very similar manner, and he's dealing with this. And so the synagogue leader shows up. Now this is very interesting. This is very risky of the synagogue leader. Very risky. Because after all, who hates Jesus? All the religious people. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the people who use and run the synagogue. Okay, people who are part of the synagogue. So this guy's peers, this guy's his bosses in some regard. This guy's people that he looks up to or is accountable to because he's in charge of the synagogue. But these are the people that put him into power, and they hate Jesus. And then he is going to Jesus for help while they are present. That's risky. That is severely risky. But check this out. I understand where he's coming from, because I have a daughter. And she has a shortcut to my heart. Okay, when I put her to bed at night and I close the door, I say, good night, dear. Jesus loves you. I love you. Have a good night. And I shut the door. Then I hear from the sounds of a closed room, a broken, tear-filled voice, "Daddy, can you come back in for a minute? I want to talk to you." And I just feel this thing in my heart that goes, oh, I got to go back in. No, I know if I go back in, she won't go to sleep. But I want to go back in. She has that shortcut to my heart. And if something were to happen to her, if she were to get to the point that she was deathly ill or died, and I thought going to a certain person would change that, you better believe nothing would stand in my way. no fear of vocational disruption, no fear of social outcast or social rejection, no fear of chastisement would stop me if my daughter had something wrong with her. I would become a very desperate man if something was wrong with my daughter, like this pastor. Okay, so something's wrong with his daughter. She has died, and he just is like, he's a desperate, desperate man. And he wants nothing more than to get to Jesus, because if he could just make a difference, who cares what anybody thinks? If he could just make a difference, then that's good enough for him. It is absolutely worth the risk, because, and this is a phrase you're going to hear a lot today, our passions and our loves move us to do amazing things. Okay, when we are filled with passion and love, we find within that the motivation, the drive, the hope to do amazing things. And so this ruler, as risky as he was, decided to come before Jesus, to come regardless of any social opposition, to kneel before him and to be a desperate man to Jesus. Okay, so that's our big motif. Our passions and our loves can move us to do amazing things. And then while Jesus was working with this man and on his way, he runs across a hemorrhaging woman, a bleeding belle, if you will, for alliterative purposes. Okay, and check this out. Just then, just then, right away. So already, Pharisees complaining, John the Baptist's disciples complaining, my guy comes in, my daughter's dead. And just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. I know ladies know what it's like for a week and a month. For 12 years, every day, every night, this woman is unclean and a social outcast and cannot participate in temple worship. She is an outcast like a leper. No one can touch her because that would make them unclean for 7 days. No one can go near her like that for fear of maybe accidentally bumping up against her. Okay, this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years came up behind Jesus and touched the edge of his cloak. And people often ask, well, since anyone who touches her is unclean, does this mean Jesus just became ceremonially unclean because he came in contact with the bleeding woman? And here's the beautiful thing. Absolutely not. She did not make him unclean. Even though the law said that that's what would happen, she did not make him unclean because Jesus made her clean. Okay, so no matter where you're at in life, no matter how disgusting your life may be, no matter how much sin is in your life, no, you will not dirty up God. God will clean you. Okay, so she comes up and she touches the cloak and she said to herself, if I can only touch his cloak, then I might be healed. Jesus turned and he saw her. Take heart, daughter, he said. Your faith has healed you. And the woman was healed at that exact moment. Now, with this bleeding belle, I want you to notice something. First off, women in that society did not have the greatest standing of all things. They were not way up to do. There were some women that excelled themselves and were leaders in different ways, but predominantly they were not a high up society person, and they were not, especially when bleeding, even able to go into worship. So for her to go up and touch someone was against customs. For her to go up and go near someone like that was against what you're supposed to do and against the Jewish law, because you could make someone unclean. And yet she did it anyways, because what does she have within her? This desire to be healed. And Jesus healed her. Why? Because our passions and our loves move us to do amazing things. Jesus had so much love and compassion for her that he did something amazing. He healed her. And he wasn't even worried about social customs. Jesus instead just reached out to her and she was healed immediately. It's amazing what Jesus did. And I want you to notice something else. You might say, well, where does it say Jesus had compassion? What if he just healed her because? What phrase did he call her? Daughter. I want you to notice something. In the first part, the synagogue ruler, we have a dad who is being a good dad, being involved in the life of his kid and doing everything he possibly can to get his daughter and Jesus together. And dads hear that. That should be your number one goal, getting your daughters and Jesus together. And I don't mean that in a threatening way. If you date that guy, so help me, you'll meet Jesus face to face. Don't mean like that. I mean the primary goal should be, daughter, Jesus. Jesus, daughter, get acquainted. And let everything you do, daughter, happen because of Jesus. Happen through Jesus, because of Jesus, for Jesus. That's why I tell my daughter, even though she's 6 and she's turning 7 fairly soon, but I tell her all the time, when she talks about boys and husbands, I say, remember the 2 requirements? She's like, yeah, I remember. What are they? No Jesus, no job, no joining. That's right. Get that memorized. They don't love Jesus, it's the no-go. She goes, well, what if they have a great job but don't love Jesus? Well, then what's the equation? No Jesus, no job, no joining. So what does that mean? I guess I don't marry them. You're right. What if they love Jesus but have no job? Well, then what's the equation? No Jesus, no job, no joining. So what does that mean? I don't marry them. You're right. It's real simple. Okay, and so that's the goal of dads, to get their daughters and Jesus together. However, with the bleeding woman, notice no dad is present. Some of you women have dads like that. Some of you women have dads that are not present in your life like you wish they would be. Maybe they've died and they're just not around anymore. Maybe they're the deadbeat dad who couldn't handle what it means to be father and just left the scene. Maybe there was an ugly divorce. Maybe they're just the type of dad that puts career over family, and they work so much that they don't even know what their kid's face looked like except for the picture on the corner of their desk. Maybe you have a dad who is just absent, or maybe he's very, very present and you wish he was absent because he's an abusive dad. He's not a loving dad, and you have no idea what it means to love God the Father because your father on earth is such a failure. Maybe you're dealing with that type of a dad. That's where this woman is at. Her dad is not present for whatever reason. Her dad is not seeking out Jesus on her behalf. Her dad is not there trying to make sure that her and Jesus get together. Her dad's not even there to make sure that her travel is even safe. Her dad is absent. And Jesus calls her what? Daughter. Okay, Jesus calls her daughter, because God is the father of the fatherless. And Jesus loves her. And he sees her without a dad. And he tells her, daughter, if your dad won't look out for you, I will. And Jesus heals her. And Jesus does for her what needs to be done. It's an amazing, the love of Jesus. Like I've said, our passions and our loves move us to do amazing things. What is the phrase? Our passions, our loves move us to do amazing things. Amazing things. But it doesn't stop there. So Jesus finally gets to the residence of the ruler. He has now dealt with the disciples on various camps, dealing with daughter dead, dealing with a bleeding woman. Now he gets to the house just to get mocked. Check this out. When Jesus entered the synagogue leader's house and saw the noisy crowd and people playing pipes, okay, because keep in mind, whenever someone dies, the funeral happens immediately type of a situation. They bring in wailers. The people start screaming, because if so-and-so is screaming, then you feel comfortable crying as hard and as loud as you want. And they blow instruments and they're crying out over the death of this young girl. And so he saw all the noise and he said, "Go away. The girl is not dead but asleep." And they laughed at him. Jesus is already having a hard day, and now people are mocking him when he says she is not dead, she's asleep, meaning that he is about to do something absolutely what? Amazing. Jesus is about to do something absolutely amazing, and people laugh at him. Maybe you've had that, where everything's going wrong, and then you try to do something else just to help someone, and people mock you for it, and you just can't cut a break. So this is where Jesus is at, and they laughed at him after the crowd had been put outside. I love this. Not after the crowd casually strolled out. Not after the crowd decided to exit, after they were kicked out. Okay? After Jesus said, "Disciples," you know, especially Vin Diesel, "Get him out of here." And so then the Expendables show up and they're pushing everyone out. "Get out of here. Let Jesus work. You're being a dork." And so after they got put outside, I love that. Forcibly removed from the premises. Put outside. He went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread throughout all of that region. Like, holy cow, what is this? Look at this amazing, amazing thing that had taken place. We hadn't even heard of something like this happening. This is phenomenal. That this girl was raised from the dead like that. Amazing. Of course, why did this happen? Because our passions and our loves move us to do amazing things. But it doesn't stop there. Jesus' day keeps getting worse to epic and humorous proportions, because now he gets interrupted by two blind men. I figured at this point, Jesus is thinking one of two things. One, this is done, I can go back to the party. Or two, I might as well just go to where I'm staying for the night. And I don't know, rest. Maybe pop on some Netflix and just chillax for a moment, because it has been a really busy day. I know, you're like, they didn't have Netflix back then. Fine, Amazon Prime, better? All right, and so he wants to just chill just for a little bit. Check this out. As Jesus went on from there, so he leaves the ruler's house, he takes a few steps, and the two blind men are following him, and they're calling out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." And so picture this. Jesus is leaving. Have mercy on us. He's still going. Son of David, have mercy on us. And Jesus does not stop. You might think, oh, Pastor, you're reading into that. Surely he would have stopped and talked to them. Look at this. When he had gone where? Indoors of another place. So he did not talk to them outside. He kept walking. So I want you to picture this. Jesus is walking, and these blind people are following him. Jesus, I'm curious, how did they know where he was going? Because after all, they are what? Blind men. I mean, do they have a seeing eye cat that could follow the fishy smell of the fishermen? I mean, what is it that they could, how did they know where Jesus? I'm really glad Jesus is Jesus and not me, because I would have been mean. I would have been playing tricks. I would have done practical jokes. I would have had a stick. I would have stopped and thrown it somewhere. And they were like, oh, he's over that way. I hear sound. And then I would have kept on going. And I would, if I was in that desperate situation, that's what would have been like, that's so mean. Well, maybe, but it's funny to me. But nevertheless, Jesus goes indoors. How did they get inside? Did they have a friend with them to help them, like a seeing eye guide? Did they have a little clicker or a little stick that how did they, we don't know. Matthew doesn't tell us, because keep in mind, we have talked about this before. Matthew leaves out details when he wants to speed the story up so that we can see the climax of this picture in a fast-paced way. So details are left out on purpose so we can see these things just piling up on Jesus left and right, left and right. So he had gone indoors. We don't know what house. We don't know if it's the house where he's staying. We don't know if it's a hotel. We don't know if it's the synagogue ruler's house. He turned around and went back indoors. We don't know if it's back to Matthew's house. We don't know. He went indoors somewhere. It could have been a Walmart for all we know, and he decided to go shopping. I have no idea. Maybe a little bit of Jack Daniels was necessary at this point in time, because he just needs to kick back just a little bit. Well, don't know what he's doing. So he's just goes indoors. And so the men came to him. And so Jesus asked them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." And their sight was restored. And Jesus warned them sternly. That word sternly in the Greek means to snort, like a horse's snort. Okay, it says he warned them sternly, it means he basically yelled at them with a level of frustration involved. Okay, now people have commented, this seems uncharacteristic of Jesus. It doesn't seem very patient of Jesus. It doesn't seem very compassionate of Jesus. Let me ask you, what type of day has Jesus had? Okay, have you ever had it that by the end of a very long day, you just start getting a little bit short? And I don't mean that biologically. Have you ever had that your patience and your fuse, you might have a long fuse, but over the day, the fuse gets shorter and shorter. God is described as one who is patient, and the word patient means macrothumos. It means a very long thermometer. I like looking at it as a stick of dynamite with a super long fuse. But just because the fuse is super long doesn't mean that fuse doesn't reach the dynamite at some point. And it is not sinful for it to get there. It's how that explosion is handled, whether it's sinful or not. And so Jesus is getting down to that shorter fuse, and he turns to them. He heals them. Patience, compassion, amazing. He doesn't have them put out like the other people at the funeral. Okay, he doesn't do that, but he heals them, and then he warns them sternly, because so help him, if they go and tell people that he did more things, more people are going to show up and make it so he can't sleep. So he doesn't want them to say a thing, because it's time to have some silence. It's time for the crowds to go away. And so he warns them sternly. See here that. I love that he says see here, because they were blind, right? It's a pun. Come on, Jesus told an actual American pun. Okay, isn't that awesome? That means puns are divinely inspired, and I can use them for the rest of the sermon. Okay, maybe not. I'm still overdue from last week. Did too many of them last week. And so see that no one knows about this. That's what he tells them in a very stern, snorting type of voice. I imagine it's kind of like, like the Dark Knight Batman. See here, no one knows of this. It's a good growl with it. But they went out and spread the news about him all over that region. Their first action is to disobey Jesus. That's these people's first reply. They come in, they get healed, and their first reply in response is to disobey Jesus. Why? Because they were so passionate about being able to see, and they loved the fact that they could see so much that our passions and our loves move us to do amazing things. Sometimes those amazing things are amazing disobedience. Sometimes our passions and our loves move us to do amazing bad things. Amazing things in disregard to Jesus' teachings. Amazing things in disregard to what was asked or requested by God himself in his word. Sometime, and of course you might say, wow, that seems awfully dark. Who would do that? Have you ever seen a woman be with a guy that she has no business being with? And when you try to tell her and warn her that guy's a deadbeat, that guy's a nothing, you need to find yourself a better guy, the more you warn her, the more she gets driven into the relationship of that person, and the more she's in love with that person, the more all she can talk about is how he has potential and can't do anything, but he has potential to maybe do something, maybe, and she just falls head over. And then some women will leave from abusive relationship to abusive relationship, no matter how much you tell them, look what Scripture says for what it wants you to find in a mate. Look what you should be looking for. Look at the character traits. These are what you should look for. And they don't listen because they're in love with the boy. And they just want everything to be with the boy. And that's what and some guys are that way. They just go from mess to mess, project to project, instead of to a partner. And they just don't know what it means to find a godly, holy woman. And all they look for is a woman who's a mess that they can come and rescue. And that's all they're about, is a project and not a partner. And you warn them, you tell them, maybe you should find someone who's less high maintenance, and they just drive off because I'm in love. And you just go, man, your blindness is amazing. Because our passions and our loves can move us to do amazing things for God's glory or not for God's glory. And then it doesn't stop there. Just when you thought maybe now it ends and the day comes to a close. Oh, no. Oh, no. Because you know what those days are like. You think it's finally over, and it's 11 o'clock at night. You lay down, surely now the day is over, and then your phone rings. And a text happens. Ding! And it's just like, oh, now what? Oh, yeah, I know. In Jesus' world, a demon-possessed man shows up. Because the day hasn't been nuts already. Why not? While they were going out, while the blind men had gone out and started telling everything. So while this is all happening, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. I'm sure this was like Jesus saying, a mute, a reprieve. Yes, he can't talk. Oh, thank you, Father. Oh, he has someone with him, though. He can talk. Dadgummit. And so a demon-possessed man who could not talk was brought to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. And the crowd was amazed and said, nothing like this had ever been seen in Israel. But the Pharisees said, and more mocking, just in case you think that Jesus is done with that. Oh no, it keeps piling up. Pharisees said, it is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons. Surely Jesus can cast out demons because Jesus is basically Satan himself. You know, I don't know about you, but that just would really clinch the day. If you're at work and everything's going wrong and you go to do something and something breaks and something didn't go right and something bad happened, then you lose a contract and customers complain, your boss yells at you, you're put on notice, everything goes wrong, then all of a sudden your coworker shows up and says, hey, so-and-so, they're basically Lucifer. And you're just sort of like, I'm going to reach out the right hand of fellowship. I'm telling you, this is just getting to the end of me now. And this is what's happening with Jesus. It is just getting so much going on. It is just piling and piling and piling. So how would you end a day like that? At what point would you just say, cell phone, power off, boom. Phone, landline, unplug. Doors locked, lights off, blinds shut. Garage door locked, off. Anybody knock at my door? Keep knocking because no one's answering. At what point would you just be done? Some of us would probably give up at half of Jesus' day. Okay, because his day has been crazy. Absolutely crazy. I was frustrated not buying a Luke Skywalker toy at midnight. Okay, and I was frustrated. I was like, what's wrong with these stores? I was frustrated at the lady not stocking the Meijer shelves. She's, I was frustrated. I was like, just do your job. Stack everything, then make it look pretty. Trust me, it won't stay there for long. And I was getting frustrated. And my wife, the compassionate soul she is, she's like, let's just go for a walk and look at other things we could buy. I'm like, no! Budget. She's like, well, you were buying toys. Yeah, we budgeted for that. We didn't budget for that furniture, that little bookshelf, and oh yeah, everything. But she's like, come on, let's just go. It doesn't do any good to keep being angry at her. Let's just go. It's just try to, calm yourself down. Who knows what type of day she was having? What if her day was just as bad, and here comes a Star Wars geek coming in trying to tell her how and when to do her job? So who knows where people are at? That's the compassion side that we need to have. How would you end a day as crazy as Jesus's? What would you do when your passions and loves are there? When your passions or loves are for other people, amazing things happen. When your passions or love are for yourself, amazing things, but maybe not so nice, can happen. So which side of that equation do you tend to find yourself at the end of a very long day? What passions and loves do you have? Is it for other people? Is it for God? Is it for yourself? Where is it at? Do you love your time? Do you love your schedule? Do you love your status quo? Do you love convenience? Do you love your routine? And then if someone tries to disrupt it, then whoa, step back because things are going to get hairy. If you're driving to work and someone cuts you off, how do you respond? Okay, what point do you find yourself saying or thinking or doing amazing things, for good or bad? Here's how Jesus replies. He replies with some TLC, and I love this. That he replied with good, tender, loving care. Check this out. Here's how this works, and this is where we're going to get drawing our applications from and our lessons for today. We'll be here just briefly, so check this out. First, verse 35, it says what we find is that Jesus displays absolutely total commitment. Absolutely, completely, total commitment. Commitment to what? To the two greatest commands. Love God, love people. He displays total commitment to the love of God and the love of people, even when it is at a complete disadvantage to himself personally. After the day he has had, and you would think it is time to just throw in the towel and turn off the lights and be done with it, Jesus responds. Jesus went through where? All the towns and villages, doing what? Teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news. What this means is Matthew steps back and says, day in, day out, this is the life of Jesus. It doesn't stop. It just goes. He doesn't get Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays off. He doesn't get a 4-day weekend because it's September 4th. That doesn't happen in the life of Jesus. He keeps going. He went through teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. That is, for lack of any other words, total commitment. He is committed all the way to the point of exhaustion and then a couple steps beyond. That is where Jesus is at. Absolute, total commitment. And while he has that total commitment, he is displaying and having within him absolute love and compassion. Check this out in verse 36. When he saw the crowds, because when you go from city to city, town to town, what are you going to see but people? And when he saw the crowds, he had what on them? Compassion on them. He saw them and his heart broke for them, not because of them. He didn't look at them and say, wow, what pitiful people. He didn't look at some people and come and say, wow, how could you dress like that and treat your kids like that? What's wrong with you? He looked at them and his heart broke for them, not because of them and not at them, but for them. He had compassion because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Hear that phrase, like sheep without a shepherd. And what is happening here is that even the leaders, the religious leaders, were treating the people badly. Even the leaders were doing a bad job. It's in a sense it would look like today that if a disaster happened, like with Harvey, and then what happens is that you end up finding churches not helping and instead adding to the problem. That is what it looks like right now in Jesus' day. Some regards is what it looks like today. I saw more people complain about Joel Osteen than they did about the destruction of the families and the loss of lives. Seems like we still have a problem today with the issue of compassion. And so Jesus saw them as sheep without a shepherd. He saw them as sheep that had no one to help them. No one to guide them. They were like the bleeding woman who was fatherless. They had no one available. And so Jesus has this compassion. And it's amazing what happens when you're moved by passions and loves. Because what's our phrase? Our passions and our loves move us to do what? Amazing things. So Jesus does something amazing. He says the next line. It's not an action that's amazing. He's already done lots of amazing actions. Now he's going to say something absolutely amazing. It's this call out. And it's different than you might have ever have read it to be when you really stop and see this within the context of what's going on. When he says we need to call out to God. And check this out in verse 37 and 38, right to the end of the chapter. It says this. Then he, Jesus, said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful. Okay, there's lots of people that are hurting. The field is huge. Look at all the people, the crowds in every city. The harvest is plentiful, but there doesn't seem to be enough workers. The workers are few. The people actually in the field are few. Very few. Ask the Lord of the harvest. This word, ask, actually is a word that means to command, to call out and command. It is saying, God, send someone. To be so moved within ourselves that we would yell out to God, God, send someone. This is so hopeless. You can do something. Do it. Intervene. It is a command out. Ask the Lord of the harvest to send out workers. Now, this word send out, a lot of people don't understand this one. This is fascinating. They start thinking, well, that means we need to get people, train people, and get people saved so they can go out and be workers. That is not what he is saying here. This word send out is actually, there's a better English word for it, cast out. The word literally means cast out. It's the identical word used for exorcisms when Jesus casts out demons or sends out demons from people. Okay? You cannot cast out or send out what is absent. You can only send out what is present. What that means is that there are workers available. They're just not doing the job. There are people there. There's a field. There's few people in the field, but there's a lot of available people, saved, godly, supposedly people on the outside of the field. They're just not doing their job. And so this is the prayer that Jesus says, hey, there are people available and they're not doing it. Because after all, who's doing all the work that we've been seeing? Jesus or his disciples, who are many? Who's doing all the work? Jesus. It seems like a lot of what happens within churches is that all the work is done by a few people, when there's a lot of people that are indeed available that could do the job, but they'd rather watch. But they'd rather just kind of follow and see what happens next. They're there, they're available. Jesus has sent out his disciples before. They have been involved before, but they're not doing anything. And there's religious leaders that would rather follow Jesus and complain than do what their job is, to be a shepherd. And that is not a foreign concept. People might think, well, maybe that hasn't been taught yet in the New Testament. Well, it's been taught in the Old Testament all over the place that religious leaders are supposed to be shepherds. Numbers 27:17, 2 Samuel 5:2, 1 Kings 22:17, Jeremiah 3:15, 10:21 and 23:1, Ezekiel 34:5, Zechariah 10 verses 2 and 3, and chapter 11 verse 16, and on my list goes. It's 3 lines long, where shepherds are being as the analogy for religious leaders, that they're supposed to be shepherds and that the people are sheep. And what's happening is that the leaders in Jesus' time were not treating people like sheep. They're treating people like cows. And I think that's happening in America today, is that the church is being treated like cows instead of sheep. You might wonder what the difference is. A shepherd helping a sheep goes down alongside the sheep, works with the sheep, hands-on with the sheep, guides the sheep, feeds the sheep. A cow, all you have to do is show up, put food in a trough, and walk away. And let the cow be by itself. That's all that has to be done. Okay, so everyone show up at the feeding trough Sunday morning. Here's your feed. I'm out of here. And they'll see you next Sunday. And that's the end of it. That's treating people like cows who don't need shepherds. There aren't cow shepherds. There's cow herders, usually done with a motorcycle or a dog. But sheep need shepherds. They are more high maintenance. They need more involvement. They need more care. You have to be gentle with the sheep. Did you know that if you jump next to a sheep and scream real loud, the sheep could actually die? Did you know that? They could have a heart attack right there and die. You know what happens if you jump next to a cow and scream at it? It just looks at you. Okay, you can't scare a cow to death, but you can scare a sheep to death. Okay, sheep are more frail. They need more care. They need more gentle work. They need more involvement like that. And that wasn't what the leaders were doing. It wasn't what they were doing at all. And Jesus is saying there are workers. They just need to be cast out. There are people available. They just need to be sent out. In other words, this prayer here is a real simple prayer. You know what the prayer is? God, light a fire under the church. If amazing things are not happening, then that means there is likely a lack or a deficit of passion and love. So God, light a fire under the church, that there will be a resurgence of passion, a new fire of love, that out of those passions and love, the church might be moved to do amazing things. And I think that's beginning to happen in Indianapolis. I am absolutely excited. Watch out, Indianapolis and Pleasant View, because I think there's a resurgence of passion and love amongst the churches. As I look at the Good News Club that is coming up soon, and I look at the Hope Center Indy, and I see, just with the Hope Center, 11 to 12 different denominations all coming together, and they're all working together. And they're all trying to help broken people find Jesus. They're taking fatherless women who have been taken from their fathers, and they don't know where their fathers are, women who have been violated and abused and trafficked, and they're taking them and they're bringing them to Jesus. They don't care about denominations. They don't care about social customs. They don't care, and we're not caring about whether these women have been sexually violated. We just want to help them. We don't care how dirty they are, how much they've been pumped up with drugs, how much bad decisions they've made. We just want to love on them and help them find healing in the name of Jesus. There is a resurgence happening in Indiana of love and of passion. And you know what that means? If the church gets refilled in Indiana with love and passion, what's going to happen? Amazing things. Which means amazing things have already happened in the state, but amazing things are still going to happen. Amazing things have still yet to come.